Welcome to Wine Soundtrack South Africa. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Marina Kalo, and today I'm joined by Antoinette Vermooten from Bayede Wines. Antoinette, a very warm welcome. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I'm Antoinette Vermooten, and I started the wine company in 2008. My background is law. I was a magistrate for 25 years, and I've entered now the business world.
That's quite a change from law into wine. Tell me about this journey with Bayede. Where did it begin?
In 2008, I met the Zulu king, the late King Gudros Welletini, over a cup of tea. And I realized the need for job creation in South Africa. And also transformation was always part of my passion. I did an honors degree in political science. And I thought, well, the king is talking the truth. Poverty is a big challenge in South Africa. And how can we put people to action? And how can we establish a brand that resonates with the population, the majority of the black population in South Africa? And the king said to me, help me to create jobs in South Africa. And I said, Your Majesty, I will. So after that cup of tea with the king, I went back, and with my background of law, I realized that a trademark is the value of all businesses. It's about the brand. The contents is secondary, but it should also match up. And I said, there is no signature signed by a monarch in South Africa. And I said, let me develop a royal signature brand that the majority of the population resonate with. And I came up with the word Bayede, that was shouted by King Shaka Zulu 200 years ago to unite the nations, and still today is used to greet the Zulu king.
Okay, so what does Bayede mean?
Bayede means hail the king. It is a greeting, a Zulu greeting, that is reserved only for the Zulu king. And still today they will shout Bayede, which means hail the king, or Your Majesty, we honor you. Wena went Lovu, you are bigger than the elephant.
That is amazing. It's actually giving me goosebumps all over just hearing you. You don't own your own vineyards, if I'm correct. How do you work at sourcing your grapes or your wine?
All right, I've studied quite a lot of the business models, like the Rupert and Rothschilds, which was actually building a brand. And then the secondary was put in action, the whole process of supply chain management. So I decided that to own a brand is more important than owning property. And to establish a brand that resonates locally as well as internationally with the unique competitive advantages, that is the way to go. So we signed joint ventures with different wine farms. And we have our own winemaker. So our winemaker will sign off the wine, he will craft it, he will style it, and then, as you know, there's a few bottling plants in South Africa. So we do some of them on the estates, and then the majority of our wines that we export are being done by the bottling companies, that is in Paarl as well as in Worcester. So we sign the agreements and we can pick and choose. We're also very fortunate to have been supplied by the big names in the South African industry, like the Vergelegens, Tokara, Kleine Zalze, De Wetshof, Antonie Rupert, for a specific range, which is our Luxury 7 Icon range, to unite all those top producers in South Africa under one unique brand.
It makes so much sense if you think about it, because you're not tied down to specific vineyards. You can really play around with the terroir and different cultivars from different regions, and it just opens up what your possibilities are so much more. How much wine do you produce under the Bayede brand every year?
We in the past, when it was before COVID, we had 200,000 liters. That was the average bottle sales that we had. And we, in the good years, we had up to 450,000 bottles a year. Now after COVID and starting to look for new export markets, the average in terms of bottle sales is 230, 260,000.
So still quite big, definitely not tiny. And then tell me your markets. What are they currently outside of South Africa?
All right, as with COVID, we had to start on a clean slate. And we focus on alternative countries. In the past, we had very successful exports into China. But now with the economy, I think there's still opportunities in China. Then we focus on Africa. I think with the international treaties that were signed by the government, like the AGOA and also the SADC free trade zones, we will focus on exporting to markets where our importers also benefit from the policies that is being put in place in terms of the excise duties. So Africa is a big focus for us. China is definitely something that we want to rekindle, and then also we are focusing on alternative markets like Italy, which is a product that we believe can resonate with them as well in terms of the packaging. There's quite a lot of similarity in terms of what they like in their markets. And I think that is the big focus. So we have had a more strategic focus in terms of what is the government planning in terms of policies and legislation to make it worth the while to be price competitive as well with our export focus.
Yeah, it's a challenging market out there at the moment, and I definitely think that the brand as you have it is certainly something very unique out of South Africa, which must help in many ways. But Antoinette, I'd like to talk a little bit about you. When did you decide to go into wine? What was the catalyst? I mean, somewhere along the way you must have had a glass of wine and thought, this is kind of something that I'd like to get my teeth sunk into.
I must say it was actually the discussions to make a difference in the country. For me, job creation, and the wine industry is 60% contributed to jobs specifically in the Western Cape, and women empowerment, and then to build a brand that is uniquely and proudly South Africa, that talks about the history. There's not a lot of brands currently available that talk about 200 years of history. And also royal, that's signed by a monarch that is actually protected by the South African Constitution. But also my passion was not necessarily the content, but really to make a difference and to do women empowerment through the beadwork that we have around the neck of the bottle. So it was more a strategic focus on how can we penetrate the saturated market with a unique brand that is totally different, that was an offer.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about the beadwork on the bottles, because that is something that stands out with your wines.
Yes, the beadwork was actually one of the questions by the king, because when he said, how are we going to create jobs in South Africa, I said, by adding value. And so every bottle of our wines will have beadwork around the neck. It's been produced by ladies in the rural area. And some of the ladies have been with us for 10 years already. We paid more than 2.5 million rands for the ladies in the rural areas who is doing the beadwork. So that is very close to my heart. And that is the drive to make a success of this business, is to really not generate the income in terms of ourselves, but also to take the poor and the needy and empower women in rural areas.
That is so important. I obviously, as a woman myself, it's something that is close to my heart as well. But if you empower a woman, you really look after a family, and that is the important thing that I take away from this, for sure. Tell me about the range of wines. You've got different tiers. I'd like you to share a little bit more about those.
All right, I did touch on the 7 Icon range, and we're very proud because we're the first Black economic empowerment company that was selected for the Nederburg Wine Auction. So that is our flagship range, which is called the 7 Icons. And in that range, we will do, it's a very limited range, and we will select the best on offer in South Africa under that brand. Then we have follow the protocol of the royal family. So I said, let us start with the king. He is, after all, the king. And we developed a range which is called Bayede, the king range, King Goodwill Zwelithini. He also signed off the range in terms of the jubilee when he was 40 years in reign. So all the brands that we do tell the story. Then we have the Queen range, and currently there's this big TV show of Shaka Zulu Ilembe. And so what I've done with Queen Nandi, and as we celebrate Women's Day, there's a lot of information about how powerful she was. So I developed a Queen Nandi MCC. And then we have the Prince range, because the king said to me, I want wines of quality that's available for my people. So that is why I said, let us do a Prince range that is uniquely, that's different, more ethnic in terms of packaging. And after that, I said, let us do a B-roll range. So the B-roll range is our lifestyle range. And with that range, we focus on the younger generation. So everybody wants to be a roll. So I've used this whole slogan of hashtag B-roll. And we've developed 3 ranges, a sweet, a natural sweet that we are actually launching this month. Also a bag in a box, which we will export into Africa. And then another producer contacted me and said they would like to be part of this organization and company. And I then developed a range which is called the Royal Reserve. In that range, there's a Merlot and there's a Sauvignon Blanc. So it's also hand-picked, not as big volumes as the other ranges that we have, but I think with the flexibility of our business model, we also assist with the wine industry per se to develop brands that their fantastic offset can go into.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. What is the most expensive bottle in your range at the moment, and what is in it?
Right, the most expensive bottle is the Royal Reserve range, and it will be on the shelves for 350 rands. But we also have a XO brandy that is selling for 2,500 rands a bottle. So I actually saw this morning in terms of retail that the competitive advantage in terms of price is the quality. We've got several international gold winner medals, Michelangelo, Mundus Vini. We've got the gold from international accredited people, Tim Atkins, 94 points. So price is, I think, very affordable, maybe too cheap sometimes.
Maybe too cheap, I'm thinking, for sure, with that quality. Which of your wines, and I don't want to ask you what is your favorite or anything like that, but which of your wines is the one you will open after a really bad day in the office?
I will prefer the Royal Reserve Shiraz. It is a very smooth, well-balanced wine produced by a very well-known winemaker, Henny, from Kloof. And it's got a beautiful story because he also have this specific vine that is very old in Cape Town. And that specific wine is used from that historical grape, and that is our reserve range.
I can imagine how that could lift your spirits after a tough day, definitely. Which of your wines would you opt to enjoy in celebration of something?
The Queen Nandi Method Classic. We also got Gold Michelangelo Awards. It is of dry Brut Rosé. Despite the fact that it's a nice feminine look and feel in terms of the brand packaging, is really nice and crisp.
You can't go wrong with Cup Classique to celebrate anything, definitely. Okay, as a consumer, Antoinette, what do you enjoy most? Red wine, sparkling wine? What's your go-to?
I prefer red wine.
Mm-hmm. And then, have you ever played around with food and wine pairing? Is that something you do? Do you have a specific recipe? Or do you just like to mess around and see what works?
Food and wine is very important because I think the one can't go without the other. As a company, we also do fabulous food and wine evenings. We had one 2 weeks ago in KZN where we auctioned a bottle of our Royal Reserve Shiraz for 20,000 rands, which will be donated to a non-profit organization. But there the chef also indicated, and he used the traditional South African foods to pair with the wines. I think it's very important. When I cook myself, I prefer to not just only have the glass in the bottle, but also in the pot.
Fair enough, that makes sense. What would you say a non-wine drinker misses out on by not enjoying a glass of your wine?
I think wine is an essential tool for skills development and for socialization. It is a tool to relax. It's actually very healthy despite the fact that it's very enjoyable. But I will promote responsible drinking, and I think a glass of wine is like cheese on biscuits.
I'm going to use that one. Okay, so some people read tea leaves in the bottom of a teacup to see what the future holds. If you were to read the sediment within a red wine glass as to what the future holds for the Bayede brand, what would those sediment pieces say?
I must say I love when I see the sediment because it also resonates with our vision to be the number one internationally recognized African brand globally.
I like that prediction as well. That's it's very exciting, and it's certainly something that one can strive towards. So yes, go for it. I love it. When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I always wanted to be in the legal profession. So that was my passion, but also to empower people. I did a master's degree in law, and then I focused on women empowerment and child justice. So for me to empower people, to give them opportunities, and to believe that every humankind's got possibilities, and you need to ignite that.
You know, you really do. We live in this beautiful country, and it's such a sad reality that our unemployment rate is so high. And if you think about the South African wine industry, and you alluded to it earlier, here in the Western Cape, we provide about 270,000 people with jobs. It's quite a big deal. And our producers are so focused on ensuring that there's work for their workers. Many of them opt not to mechanize, when in many ways mechanization would be a lot simpler. But it's about looking after these people who often have worked on our farms for generations and know nothing else. This is it's in their blood, in their veins. So yeah, it really is an amazing thing, and wonderful that despite your childhood dream of becoming a lawyer, you have used those skills to help in an industry that is somewhat different from law. When you're not working, what do you do in your free time?
I love traveling. I think that's one of my adventurous spirits that I have. I like traveling all over the world. I like traveling to the bush, to nature, and then food. I think that's my my downfall, but also my passion.
I like that passion as well. Are you into music? And if so, any specific genres, artists, styles?
I love classic music. I also play the piano, and for me, opera is beautiful as well. I love Madame Butterfly is one of my favorite operas, Swan Lake, and then I also love the South African traditional music. Believe it or not, the Zulu make beautiful drums, and their vibrance in terms of their music instruments is very interesting for me. The way that they use their vocals in just forming a concert without any practice, it's amazing. So yeah, I like the South African traditional African music. I'm not very keen on Buddha music, so that's for me a bit of a no.
Fair enough. I'm not a big fan either. I get that. A celebrity was spotted out and about with a bottle of wine, of your wine, on their table at the restaurant, and they were paparazzi'd. Who is the celebrity, and which of your wines was on their table?
I must say, it stands out that there was a restaurant in Camden called Shaka Zulu. It was an 850-seater, very traditional restaurant, and there was 850 people, and there was a lot of celebrities of London. All the who's who in the zoo was there. But for me, what stood out was the king. King Goodall's-Willetine and myself went to open the restaurant. And it was a fantastic event where the king dressed up in his traditional clothing. Everybody was in black ties. So that was a first very alternative way of introducing the culture of the Zulu king to the royal family. I also had the privilege to meet the British royal family, and the day in the restaurant that the king opened his bottle of wine, and with such pride say, "This is from South Africa. This is the best wine in the world," is a moment that I will never forget.
I can just imagine that must have left an absolute mark on your memory and your mind, and something that you can only think of very, very fondly, for sure. Today, if you could share a bottle of wine with anyone in the world, alive or dead, who would that be? And which bottle, any bottle in the world, would you enjoy?
I would have loved to meet Queen Nandi. And Queen Nandi, as I've said, what I didn't know about her that came out in the TV series is what a remarkable woman she was. She cared for her children, and she cared for her family. So she had these beautiful values. And I firmly believe that South African MCC is as good as the best bottle of champagne produced in France. So for me, the MCC with Queen Nandi that was named after her would have been a highlight in my life.
That could have been an amazing experience, I must admit. What do you consider to be the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
To follow your heart and never to give up. And I think that's so important for newcomers in the wine industry, specifically in South Africa, is to follow your heart. If you have a passion for something, you don't get tired. And if you don't give up, you can make a success.
That's great advice. It really, really is. What sort of wines do you think will be drunk in the year 2300?
I think it might not even be a wine, it might be an ice cream. I think there's such a difference in terms of what they need. And with the newcomers into the wine industry, I think there will be a paradigm change into not necessarily drinking the alcohol, but also use it in different forms and formats. So out of the box ice cream.
I love gelato, and I love that idea. I'm there. They should do it now, I think. If you were going on a island holiday and you had to bring your own wine, 3 bottles of it, which 3 wines would you take of any wine in the world?
I must say I love the Spanish wine. I was actually in Spain for quite a time. That was, for me, very alternative from what we have in South Africa. I love the Pinot Grigio. For me, it's amazing grape. My favorite is also then Chardonnay. Chardonnay, especially on an island where fish can only go well with the seafood. And then for I think red wine, a Cabernet, is something that will stand out. That's my 3 favorites.
Very, very nice. I think you're going to have an amazing holiday. We're just about done. But before we finish, I would like to play a little game. So I'm going to mention 3 different cultivars or styles of wine, and I'd like you to pair each one with either a song or an artist or a genre even that you feel best represents that style of wine. So I think I'd like to start with Cup Classique.
Cup Classique, I will think about weddings, celebrations, and also having fun in life.
And music, a type of music?
I will think about Stradivari, beautiful, happy music, allegro maybe. That is something that I can resonate with.
Lovely. You mentioned Chardonnay being one of your favorites, so it would be wrong not to go there.
For that, I will say in terms of music instruments, I'll go with a guitar. Maybe something jazz, and I think an occasion will be having a picnic.
Very, very nice. I like that. Under a moonlit sky and stars. Okay, super. So last one, let's make it a spicy Shiraz.
Definitely for pizza and pasta in Italy. At the Ponte Vecchio in Florence. I think that can be a perfect match.
And music-wise?
Music-wise, the Italian pianos.
Pianos, just lots of them, lots of pianos. I love that. Antoinette, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Would you like to just remind our listeners where they can find you online and any other information if they ever were to come to South Africa, how they could taste your wine?
Thank you. We've got a very extensive website where you can order wines from. We also ship abroad. We are closely affiliated with Rosa. We are on their platform. And then in the local market, we are all over the show. We are in several retail shops. We also focus on online stores. And if you really want the wine and you're very interested, please become an importer and we can supply.
You also, before I'm done, the Wine Arc is one of your places where someone could come and taste your wine. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
The Wine Arc is an initiative of the South African wine industry to have a world standard tasting venue where wines can be tasted of newcomers into the industry. With the focus on empowerment brands, but also amazing quality wines. It's a venue that have wine and food pairing. They've got a selection of 14 different wine brands there. And I think it's really a place that people must visit when they go to Stellenbosch.
I think so too. Antoinette, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack South Africa. For details and updates, visit our website winesoundtrack.com.